Hi, welcome to the Solutions IRB presentation on exempt category number 3. This is taken directly from the CFR, as is a lot of this presentation. So if you miss anything here, you can always find it in the Code of Federal Regulations, 45 CFR 46.104. Research involving benign behavioral interventions in conjunction with the collection of information from an adult subject through verbal or written responses, including data entry, or audiovisual recording if the subject prospectively agrees to the intervention and information collection and at least one of the following criteria is met. A, the information obtained is recorded by the investigator in such a manner that the identity of the human subjects cannot readily be ascertained directly or through identifiers linked to the subjects. So in other words, it's recorded in an somewhat anonymous fashion. B, any disclosure of the human subject's responses outside the research would not reasonably place the subjects at risk of criminal or civil liability or be damaging to the subject's financial standing, employability, educational advancement, or reputation. In other words, if identifiers are going to be linked to this data, you can't have individuals talking about criminal actions they may have committed, unusual behaviors they may engage in, and you can't have them saying things like they don't like the company they work for, they don't like their boss, or anything along those lines. Or C, the information obtained is recorded by the investigator in such a manner that the identity of the human subjects can readily be ascertained directly or through identifiers linked to the subjects, and an IRB conducts a limited IRB review to make the determination required by 46.111A7. And what that pertains to is when appropriate, there are adequate provisions to protect the privacy of the subjects and to maintain the confidentiality of the data. So if identifiers remain with the data, they need to be protected in such a way that privacy and confidentiality will not be compromised. Now, while here at Solutions, we don't get a lot of studies that would fall under exemption number 3, there is a very particular way that benign behavioral interventions is defined. For the purpose of this provision, benign behavioral interventions are brief in duration, harmless, painless, not physically invasive, not likely to have a significant adverse lasting impact on the subject, and the investigator has no reason to think the subjects will find the interventions offensive or embarrassing. Provided all such criteria are met, examples of such benign behavioral interventions would include having the subjects play an online game, having them solve puzzles under various noise conditions, or having them decide how to allocate a nominal amount of received cash between themselves and someone else. It should also be noted that exempt number 3 never covers any type of a clinical study. These are only behavioral interventions, not clinical interventions. Unlike a lot of the other exempt categories, deception can be involved in exempt 3 under certain circumstances. Those being, if the research involves deceiving the subjects regarding the nature or purpose of the research, this exemption is not applicable unless the subject authorizes the deceptions through a prospective agreement to participate in research in circumstances in which the subject is informed that he or she will be unaware of or misled regarding the nature or purposes of the research. So the research team doesn't need to tell the subject exactly what the research is getting at, but they do need to tell the subject that they're not telling them about it, or they may in fact be misleading them about what the research is about. So for example, you might say that you're testing them regarding how quickly they can remember a series of words, but in actuality, you might be testing them on, say, whether or not they remember specific words at all. What about vulnerable populations? Vulnerable populations, to a very limited extent, can be involved in exempt category 3, specifically those subjects covered by subpart B, which are pregnant women, fetuses, and neonates, may be involved in these types of studies as long as all of the other qualifications for the exemption are met. Subjects that are covered by subpart C, prisoners, may not be involved unless they are only incidentally included. So you couldn't do a benign behavioral intervention in a prison setting. However, it might be the case that one of the individuals happens to be incarcerated. So for example, if it were information's being collected online and the incarcerated individual is allowed access to computers and participates, that might be okay. Subjects covered under subpart D, children, may not be involved in category 3. So if children are involved, we need to think about things like perhaps if it's an educational type of setting, that may fall under exempt category 1, or the study needs to move up to expedited status. What should be submitted with your IRB application? Well, the application and all of the usual IRB documents, so consent forms, recruitment materials, and so forth. But you also need to provide any of the following that are used: pictures or screenshots of computer information. So if it's puzzles that are going to appear on the computer, or if it's, solve a maze, whatever. Copies of all tests or instruments that are used. So if you're doing any type of educational testing or psychological testing with this, they would need to be included. And copies of Excel spreadsheets or other methods that are being used to record the data. As always, if you have any questions about exempt category 3 or anything else, please reach out to us at reviews@solutionsirb.com or phone us at 855-226-4472. Thanks. Have a great day.